that you've heard over the last day. So I want to start off with going through a short video that I'm sure all of you have seen, and then I want to tell you a story about it. So if we can just jump right in here, and let's take a look at this.
George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane is right.
Now, if you think a lot of the buildings that were in the Jetsons look a lot like the Space Needle, that wasn't an accident. The artists and the writers for the Jetsons that worked at Hanna-Barbera at the time, they were actually in close communication with the architects for the Space Needle, which came out in 1965 for the 1965 World's Fair in Seattle. Now, the thing that I didn't know is this came out in 1962, the Jetsons came out in 62, and it was supposed to represent life in 2062, 100 years in the future. I was approached by people at the Arconic Corporation, and they were asking me this question. The Arconic Corporation, I'll just mention, is a spin-off of Alcoa Aluminum. They wanted to do this as a marketing play. They wanted to actually figure out if we were going to recreate the intro to the Jetsons today, how would we go about creating that? And so they brought in Hollywood filmmaker Justin Lin, and they had 4 of us as consultants on this project. It's myself, Kevin Kelly, and Lisa Cager, and Adrian Hahn. And so this is the version that we came up with then. We recreated the Jetsons.
George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane is right.
It's kind of a long ways to go to get to this central point, that our understanding of the future is constantly changing. So we need to understand that as we're moving along, we're constantly reevaluating our thinking about the future. I often get asked, how do I decide what's important? How do I decide what to pay attention to? Because I see all of these reports coming out of government labs or from research groups at universities, and I look at it and say, wow, this changes everything, and then nothing happens. In fact, nothing happens the vast majority of the time. So how do I know what to pay attention to? I look at what's getting traction. So in 2016, Elon Musk introduced this car. Well, he didn't really introduce the car. He made it, he said he was going to produce it. And that was a long time before anybody actually saw a car. In fact, he actually put out a couple of tweets, and over the next couple of months, there's 400,000 people actually put down $1,000 to be on a waiting list for a car they knew virtually nothing about. And this is one of the most successful product launches in all of history. Apparently the truck has got 2.5 million buyers ready to buy that one. We'll see if that actually turns out that way. But when he introduced this, the entire automobile industry woke up and said, wow, I had no idea that people wanted electric cars. And so the entire automobile industry shifted and changed as a result of that, that one introduction of that one electric car. Now I have to back up a little bit and say that the cars that we drive today have actually been in development for the past 120 years. So it's actually taking that long to get to cars that are this good. That's important to understand that. So for the past 120 years, people who have been designing cars have been designing cars around one central function, which is driving. Now, as we move into an autonomous car era, we're no longer going to be driving. So the people who are designing cars, we take this entire body of knowledge that's been developed over the past 120 years, the human relationship to the steering wheel, the human relationship to the pedals on the floor, to the dashboard, all of that goes out the window, and they start focusing on all of the other activities that happen in cars other than driving. And so then people start asking, well, is it the same job? I mean, you're still designing cars, but is it the same job? We're going to hear this question a lot over the coming years as automation and AI and robotics start to replace a lot of the tasks that we're doing in the past. See, we're a very backward-looking society. We're backward-looking because it's just human nature. See, we all personally experience the past. As we look around us, we see evidence of the past all around us. In fact, all information we come into contact with is essentially history. So the past is very knowable, and yet we're going to be spending the rest of our lives in the future. So it's almost as if we're walking backwards into the future. My job as a futurist is to help turn people around, to give them some idea of what the future might hold. So if you ask this question, how does the future get created? Well, the future gets created in the minds of everybody around us. We all participate in creating the future, but from a little different perspective. People are making decisions today based on their understanding of what the future holds. So I use this phrase a lot. The future creates the present. This is just the opposite of what most people think. Most people think what we're doing today is going to create the future, but from a little different perspective, it sees the images of the future that we hold in our heads determine our actions today. So here's the key thing. If we change people's vision of the future, we change the way they make decisions today. So that's my job. Whenever I do a presentation, my goal is to change people's image of the future, and as a result, they'll walk out making slightly different decisions. I often get asked if I have a crystal ball. Yes, I do have a crystal ball. It was sitting around at home, and my wife looked at it one day and says, you know, this is just collecting dust. Why don't you take it to the office? So reluctantly, I put it in the car. I was no more than about 4 or 5 minutes down the road, and I saw that my crystal ball had started a fire on the seat next to me. Now the crystal ball is a giant lens, and in Colorado we have lots of sunshine coming in. So I had some papers underneath and started a fire. Luckily, I was able to put out the fire before it did any serious damage. But then I had this revelation, and the revelation, which obviously came from the crystal ball, was that the newspaper headlines the next day were going to say, "Futurist killed by his crystal ball." And he didn't see it coming. So that's my disclaimer. I don't see everything. As Larry Page says, the main reasons companies fail is because they miss the future. I happen to agree with that. We're getting blindsided by emerging technology almost on a daily basis, and it's hard to keep up. Okay, 3 quick data points. In 1900, the average US home of 700 square feet had an occupancy of 4.6 people. In 1980, the average house grew to 1,660 square feet. Occupancy was 3.1 people. So last year, 2,386 square feet, 2.5 people. So larger houses, fewer people. The future is being built on ideas that are far more bigger and grand and amazing than anything anybody ever anticipated. Rooftop swimming pools. I just want to know how you get in and out of these damn things. Space hotels. Want to know how you get in and out of those too. Underground tunneling systems, human robotics, tube transportation. We're essentially reinventing life on planet Earth. Satellite communications is going to dramatically transform everything. See, 40% of the world doesn't have stable internet right now. That means 4 billion potential new users, mostly non-English speaking, mostly poor. So entrepreneurs everywhere are going to have unfettered access with all these new satellites going in. Does have monopoly breaking capabilities. Now the number I keep hearing, and this number keeps changing, 42,000, that's what Musk wants to shoot up in the sky. Over 3,600 of them have been launched so far. Now that 3,600 is over half of all the satellites in the sky right now. Now he does have a lot of competition. Amazon Kuiper, 3,200, OneWeb 2,000, Iridium 66, Samsung 4,600, China 10,000. And again, those numbers are all going to change. And there's new competitors coming out of the woodwork on a regular basis. Tesla is planning on unveiling the Pi phone. A lot of rumors surrounding this. This is direct smartphone to satellite communication. Has the potential to be a total game changer. We'll see when it actually comes out. Competing in a networked world, the key to competitive advantage is no longer the sum of all efficiencies, but the sum of all connections. So I came out with a new book recently called Future Like a Boss. Although you can't buy this book, you gotta buy the entire course that goes with it. So if you go to futurelikeaboss.com, I teach a lot of different techniques. There's a video series that goes with it, a lot of other material. And so the different futurist techniques that I teach in it, signs of the future, question mapping, backcasting, the tool of FIRST, situational futurism, attractionary futuristics, systems thinking, and peak X. Now, out of that list, I'm going to talk, I'm going to use the question mapping technique quite a bit. You'll hear a lot of questions this morning. In attractionary futuristics, I'll touch on that right now. This is a very interesting technique for kind of a way of looking at the future. An attractor is an event in the future that we're somehow drawn towards. Attractors exert powerful force on us. These are things that we all know about. As an example, Leonardo da Vinci dedicated over 500 drawings and 35,000 words to the concept of flying. So he helped turn that idea of flying into something that eventually happened, even though the first plane by the Wright brothers was 400 years after his death. There's lots of well-known attractors, fighting a cure for cancer, autonomous vehicles, space hotels, controlling the weather. We can make a very long list of all the things that we already know about that we're headed towards that we haven't managed to accomplish yet. So how do we create a new attractor though? This is where it becomes interesting. You start with a vision, you add dimension and realism, you build elements of purpose, you create relevance to the world we live in, and then you rinse and repeat. You do it over and over and over again. So if you wanted to actually create something that your industry wanted to aim towards, you follow this set of rules and it should work. So you first conceptualize the idea and then you add dimension and detail and add realism to it. So this is one of the AI ones that we're doing right now, where you can add AI to an old photograph and bring it to life. that adds a lot of realism. Realism creates viability in the minds of the visionaries. It suddenly becomes doable when it feels real. This is a seasteading competition, an art competition to see if anybody could build a city at sea. This is one of them I thought was actually quite accomplished. Then next you begin the global conversation and start the process of influencing the influencers. So this is a group from Duke University that was going after the Global Ocean X Prize, I believe it was. And so once you create these things, then you can add incentives like competitions like this to build awareness. And then you unleash the vision and monitor the global conversation. So I did a search in 2010 of the phrase flying delivery drones. It's amazing how we weren't talking much about flying delivery drones back then. Only got 1,550 results on Google. 5 years later, I did the same search and I got 1.1 million results. So once there's a sufficient body of work and sufficient global conversation, the vision becomes self-perpetuating. It takes on a life of its own. Steve Jobs was a true master of this with his reality distortion field. Every new building and emerging technology tells a different story about our future. This is a building called the Dubai Frame, crazy looking building. This is a statue of Sardar Patel in India. This is the world's tallest statue. It's kind of hard to get to, but to give you a comparison as to how tall it is, you can see the Statue of Liberty next to it there. So this is really a tall statue out there. From rethinking skyscrapers to rethinking our homes, the future of business will range from micro industries to mega projects and everything in between. So we're going to look at a lot of mega projects. One of them I use as an example is the Four Bridges project. There's actually 4 bridges which have dramatically changed life on planet Earth. One bridge would be across the Bering Strait, another one across the Darien Gap. The whole Pan American Highway was never completed because of that little 60-mile stretch there called the Darien Gap. The Korean-Japan Friendship Tunnel, which they don't like each other, so probably not going to get built. And then the Gibraltar tunnel there. These 4 would actually dramatically change life on planet Earth. Now, the longest bridge tunnel system in the world right now is the Hong Kong-Macau Bridge. It's roughly 34 miles long. This is roughly the equivalent of each of these projects. But there's lots of other things standing in the way. There are mega projects going on. The NEOM project, I don't know if any of you have heard of this. This is in Western Saudi Arabia. I was actually asked to come over and consult on this with one of their brainstorming sessions. This is what it looks like right now.
Cities that ignore nature. Now, a revolution in civilization is taking place. Imagine a traditional city and consolidating its footprint, designing to protect and enhance nature. The line will be home to 9 million residents and will be built with a footprint of just 34 square kilometers. And we are designing it to provide a healthier, more sustainable quality of life. The line's communities are organized in 3 dimensions. Residents have access to all their daily needs within 5-minute walk neighborhoods. And the line's infrastructure makes it possible to travel end to end in 20 minutes with no need for cars, resulting in 0 carbon emissions. By leveraging AI technology, services are autonomous, saving you time and effort. Designed by world-leading architects, the line is 500 meters tall, 200 meters wide, 170 kilometers long, and housed within an elegant mirror glass facade.
So that just gives you a feel for this $1 trillion project that Mohammed bin Salman wants to build. He wants something as iconic as the pyramids or the Colosseum, something that's more important than Palm Island. So he's trying to essentially upstage everybody in all history. This one here is going, I think, from a totally different angle. This is another mega
Imagine that
project.
bucket there is the source of water. So we take a pipe upslope, put it in the stream or the lake, bury it 6 feet under the ground, and the pipe takes water down slope to the village or the desert where we want to green or plant trees. Because of the gravity, pressure builds up in the pipe. Then water comes out gushing like this. Now this sprinkling water, when it mixes with -20 air, it falls down and freezes. Over weeks, it becomes a huge mountain of ice. We started piloting the ice stupa in real life application. People of the village came and volunteered to plant 5,000 trees, which were supported in the lean months by the moisture from the ice stupa. And that is a proof of concept. We should not stop at that. We will have 50 or so large ice stupas, which will then feed trees that we plant.
So are we going to start creating artificial glaciers in the mountains around us? Maybe. This one just seemed like such a out of left field project that I thought it had great potential. Then we have people trying to go to Mars. Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, so let's look at a possible scenario here. 2024, Musk launches the first ship to colonize Mars. It may or may not have people on it. It might all be robots. 2026, work begins on the first Mars colony. 2028, people of Mars establish themselves as the first self-governing planet. 2030, as demand for colonizing Mars skyrockets, Mars leaders devise a plan to fund the build-out. In 2032, the first land sale begins on planet Mars. And so this raises an interesting question. Do we live on an overpopulated planet or an underpopulated universe? And how will the sale of land on Mars affect real estate investment on Earth? It raises lots of interesting questions. I'm not sure I have any good answers for all this. But again, this is one of the mega projects that's unfolding right before us here. I'm going to take you through a series of 8 emerging technologies and give you a sense as to how they're going to affect the world around us. First one, we'll start off with is digital twins. Digital twins, I think, is absolutely fascinating. In 2013, Dr. Janis Burzek, who at the time was vice president of Fairchild Semiconductor, he put together an event at Stanford University called the Trillion Sensor Summit. Now, he actually invited people from all over the world, the different companies making sensors. So 250 attendees representing 100 companies from 40 different countries. And they concluded that we're going to reach the first trillion sensors in the world around 2024, so next year. They also concluded that by 2036, we'll reach 100 trillion sensors in the world. Now, what this means is sensors become very tiny, very ubiquitous, very easy to mass produce, very inexpensive. We start embedding sensors on everything. We have sensors on our clothing, on our cars, on our houses, our buildings. And these are sensors that were printed directly onto a human skin. This Benali design has come up with sensors that they embed in clothing. These are kind of interesting because they have a built-in GPS, so wherever you're walking along and you're supposed to turn left, it'll buzz on your left side. You're supposed to turn right, it'll buzz on your right side. So everywhere you go, you have a little GPS in your pants. The coming wave of sensors is going to spawn lots of new data-driven industries, including digital twins, Internet of Things, and our emerging metaverse. So digital twins started out as a way of modeling physical devices. and structures. But it's turned into much more than that. So if you have a piece of equipment like a front-end loader or a cruise ship or a turbine in a power plant, you can embed sensors all over this piece of equipment. You can monitor the operation from a long ways away, even halfway around the world. So as this technology improves, then you can not only monitor it, you can start anticipating failures and things like that. But as the technology evolves, we're not just monitoring things, we're also able to control things from a distance, which leads us to what's called remote robotics. So some good examples of the remote robotics is the Da Vinci surgical machine that allows doctors to do surgeries from halfway around the world. And then John Deere recently introduced a driverless tractor, so you don't actually have to be sitting on the tractor to plow a field. So it raises lots of interesting questions. At what point will the operator no longer have to be in the vehicle? How much longer will pilots still need to be inside of airplanes to fly them? Now, logically, we could displace the co-pilot rather quickly. How long before digital twin technology is common with humans? At what point can we use digital twins to map out what we're knowledgeable about and what areas we're still deficient in? And then how long before digital twins can see and hear through smart contacts and enable us to have perfect recall of everything we've ever experienced? I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. And then how long before doctors can monitor somebody's health remotely through their digital twin? All right, number 2, cell culture bioreactors. I'm not sure how much you've been paying attention to this. This is Dr. Mark Post. I spent a couple days with him back in 2016 down in New Zealand. He is the founder of Mosa Meats. He created the first lab-grown hamburger. The first lab-grown hamburger cost something like $350,000 to produce. He wanted the world to pay attention to it, so they staged a tasting competition on BBC television, where they had a couple of food critics come in and taste the first lab-grown hamburger, and it's pretty interesting watching their reaction. You can see clips of that on YouTube still today. So Mark Post he's a real geeky guy. If you tell him this is too dry, he said, well, we can work around, we can engineer around that. And it needs more marbling. Yeah, we can engineer that into it as well. So this industry is growing up really fast. So Israel's Future Meats plant, this is the first one, the large scale one that got created. There's even bigger ones going in the US right now. So as the market for chicken, fish, beef, and pork, all that's very price sensitive, very competitive. So I think we're going to start by seeing lots of exotic meat, things like wombat meat, penguin meat, bumblebee meat. And I think each one of them is going to come with testimonials saying, if you eat this, it cures your gout, or it's going to give you better skin or make you run faster or something. So keep in mind that anything that's grown in nature can be grown in these cell culture bioreactors. I should back up a little bit and say that the way they grow these is they use the stem cells of the animals to actually grow them in a different process. Rather than growing it on the animal itself, they grow it in a vat, and it takes less time than raising an animal. This is going to go off in a lot of different directions, so because we can actually grow breast milk in these bioreactors. We can grow blood. We can grow leather. And this raises a lot of interesting questions, because we could actually go to celebrities in Hollywood and actually use their stem cells and grow leather. And then you could sell designer purses. I mean, would you buy a George Clooney purse if it was made from George Clooney's stem cells? Maybe. We'll see. And the guys at MIT are working on lab-grown wood. Now, at MIT, they're taking it to another level, but when you can grow your own materials like this, see anything that's grown in nature can be grown in seeds. You could actually grow a 5,000-pound fingernail if you wanted to, and then cut it up and build your house out of your fingernail. But the lab-grown wood, what they're actually doing is they're actually trying to grow the wood in the final form. So if you want to grow a chair, you can just make a chair, you can just grow it, and then I guess you saw off the parts that you don't need. And if you want to grow a Stradivarius violin, you can just grow the entire violin or a guitar. It'll get real interesting to see if all that works the way they have it planned. Kind of an elaborate process, but it's getting refined as we speak. These are lab-grown lampshades. They have a certain rustic quality to them. These are lab-grown tusks and horns, so maybe that will get rid of some of the people that are killing the elephants and the rhinos. Autonomous transportation. This is going to redefine the heartbeat of tomorrow's cities. Driverless technology is going to be the most disruptive technology in all history. Very soon, cars with steering wheels will seem as antiquated as dial telephones. The car loan industry will start to dwindle and disappear altogether. The car insurance industry will dwindle and disappear altogether. Autonomous vehicles will radically change transportation, but we still have lots of unanswered questions. Will the vehicles look more like cars or more like vans? Will we still own our own cars, or will we just summon them when we need them? How much privacy will we have in a vehicle that we don't own? How long will it take for people to trust the safety of driverless cars? Will it increase or decrease the number of cars on the road? How long will it be before we have an adequate number of charging stations? And will the roads need to change, and if so, how? How long before I can just fall asleep and wake up in a new city? This is the one I'm most interested in. I just want to fall asleep and end up in Chicago or Miami or something. Will governments be able to track our movements? These are things that people are very wary of. If we don't own our own cars, will dealerships survive? And will this set the stage for driverless mobile businesses? This is where I think it gets real interesting. See, if I'm sitting at home at night and I need something from the store, I'm in my pajamas, I don't want to have to get dressed and go to the store. So instead of doing that, I can just summon the store to come to me. So this driverless mobile convenience store comes and parks in my driveway. And I go out there and I'm not worried about getting dressed because there's actually nobody in this mobile convenience store, even though there's 82 cameras watching every movement I make. And I just take what I need and it instantly charges me for it, and then it goes off and drives to the next person. This is typical of what we're going to start seeing very soon here. But it's not just our stores, it could be our offices too. A driverless mobile office, rather than having the same view from your office every day or from your home office every day, you can be driving around town and have your views changing. You can pick up people for your meetings wherever you go. Say you have a cooking school and you want to just drive around town and pick up the different students, and you're doing demonstrations while you're picking up and dropping them off, and they have a great time riding around town. Driverless mobile hair shops, driverless mobile dog grooming, driverless mobile banks, bicycle repair, bike rental, all the nail salons, the spas, retail will be, you can go inside the vehicle or you can purchase things from the outside. They're going to get very creative in the designs. You want to hold a party in some remote location, you just have one of these driverless mobile bars that sets up, and then you can have a driverless mobile band that provides entertainment. All of these things, wherever, even a vending machine setup, wherever there's a gathering of people, we're going to start seeing these things instantly crop up and start doing business. Driverless mobile hotel room. This conference right here could be in some faraway remote location, and we just summon all these vehicles to show up out there, and then we have our hotel rooms, and we could have conference rooms as well. And then as soon as the conference is over, they all go to New Orleans for the next event. Now, these will also work as FEMA hospital beds. So whenever there's a hurricane or a flood or earthquake or something, all of these things can just be shuffled to wherever they need to be to accommodate the disaster that's unfolding. Driverless mobile doctor's offices are actually picking up speed right now. So rather than having to go to a central place where you have lots of people with unknown diseases sitting next to you, waiting outside the doctor's office, you have this mobile unit that comes right to your front door, and you go out and it does quite a few diagnostic tests on you before you actually have to see the doctor in person. And then you can have a live interaction with the doctor inside. The mall of the future, in my mind, will very likely be a giant warehouse, and every morning they open the doors and all these driverless mobile businesses pull in and set up shop and start doing business. It'll be a very eclectic environment that'll be changing every single day. Commercial drones. This is where I'll probably go off the deep end here. Commercial drone industry is progressing rather quickly. Delivery drone market is projected to reach 5.5 billion by 2030. The drone taxi market is projected to reach 3.6 billion by 2030. And then you start asking, how long before we start seeing 50,000 drones flying over the average city on a daily basis? That's actually coming very soon. And so what problems will this create? Where are the opportunities? Will drone taxis create the need for mini airports? And will these mini airports be on the top of buildings, or will they be on the ground? And what's the maximum distance a drone taxi can travel? Will medical deliveries be given top priority? And will rural communities be given higher priority than metro areas? How long before drone taxis become a common form of transportation? And how will flying drones change the nature of home ownership? This goes off in a little bit different direction. Does having a drone-friendly designation increase or decrease the value of homes in your neighborhood? What advantage will drone security offer? Will your drones be able to talk to your neighbor's drones? What emergency services will drones offer? How common will it be for the homes in your area to have their own fleet of drones? Who has the right to shoot a drone out of the sky? At what point do we have an obligation to shoot that drone out of the sky? So this is actually a drone that's burning trash off of a power line, but who actually decides if it's burning trash off the line or trying to cut the line down altogether? Who makes that decision? And then does the right to bear arms also give us the right to own a drone that's armed? Okay, a man who carries a cat by the tail learns something he can learn in no other way. All right, 3D printed houses are actually making inroads very quickly. This is kind of how it was thought. They would set up a rig like this and then print it all on site. This is a house that got printed in Russia in January 2 years ago. This is a center pivot system that does all the printing. And it's rather clever how it does the whole thing. It's very tiny. It's only like 400 square feet. Did the whole thing in one day. And it actually looks pretty nice. The total cost is around $10,000. And so if they would extend that boom another 2 feet, they could make something roughly twice as large. So Icon is a company in Austin, Texas that's really kind of going to town, building houses everywhere. You can see these entire neighborhoods are going up. So it raises a lot of questions again. Will it be more efficient to construct units in a factory? This Italian architect came up with this idea of actually designing and constructing the units on the ground and then using the crane on the top of the building to lift them up and slide them into place. Is that how we're going to make high-rise buildings in the future? Well, maybe. But it opens the door to this free-form structure that, unlike any traditional buildings. And so with 3D printing, we no longer have the need for flat walls. Every wall can become an artistic centerpiece. It'll force us to rethink this whole concept of what actually constitutes a home or an office or a condo. And so we start questioning all of that traditional thinking. Wireless power. Nikola Tesla's dream is unfolding in kind of a unique way. We're seeing lots of wireless power systems used to charge batteries on electric cars. They're also being used to charge robots that are being used to do inventory in factories and things. Now there's a whole lot of work being done on this concept of power beaming. And power beaming has been around, that concept has been around since Nikola Tesla's time, but it hasn't actually proved out, or they haven't been able to do it until recently. So power beaming is just shooting a beam of power from one place to another. In the future, this is going to be quite common. There's a lot of work, a lot of countries are in this race to see who can create the first space-based power station, gathering solar energy and beaming it down to Earth in the form of microwaves. Caltech just gained a lot of headlines recently because they had an experiment that proved successful, and the European Space Agency was doing that as well. But as soon as you can beam power from one place to another, then we can generate power from one place on Earth and beam it to another place on Earth. We're going to start seeing experiments on that as well. Okay, digital smart cities. This will set the stage for communities to come. Smart cities will aspire to be easy to live in, easy to work in, easy to travel in, and create easy ways to connect with others. We'll judge them by their liveliness, enthusiasm, vibrancy, and spontaneity. Smart cities will use blockchain as consensus mechanisms for smart contracts, authentication, authorizations, and they'll be using it for digital identity, transparent voting, taxes, tracking, assessment, ownership. So smart cities are going to have systems for monitoring the quality of the air all the time. They will have transportation networks that are being monitored all the time, reroute traffic around bottlenecks. We're going to have delivery networks that automatically find the fastest route. When it comes to smart policing, protection, emergency rescue, we'll have ways of doing that. And they're going to be using things like noise monitoring devices to monitor for very distinct noises like people screaming or gunshots, and that's going to trigger a very specific response. So there's companies that are already putting patents in on the idea of building drones into the streetlights. And so whenever one of those sounds is heard, the first response will be to activate a fleet of drones to get eyes on the problem. And once they get eyes on the problem, then they'll know what they're dealing with. Mosquitoes are the most dangerous animal on planet Earth. Roughly 1 million people every year die from mosquitoes. So using smart cities to monitor the mosquito content and learning new ways to manage and control mosquitoes is very important. And then managing our landfills is going to be critical. Understanding the whole issues of biodegradability and any signs of contagious diseases, that sort of thing. Now cities are going to start flying drones overhead, and they're going to start mapping out the city. They're going to create digital layouts of the entire city. And over time, they're going to get much higher resolution. And this is going to give rise to what I refer to as search engines for the physical world. I want something that smells like this. I want something that tastes like that. I want something with this texture, with this harmonic vibration, with this specific gravity, with this level of reflectivity. I can search for those things. I don't have to know how it actually found it. All I know is that my search query actually produced the results I was looking for. And so this becomes very interesting once we're able to work with attributes like this. And then smart homes. We're headed towards a far more AI integrated world. Our future is being driven by troves of data and the AI bots that will assist us in making decisions. And I want to go down this weird path of robotic dogs because I find this interesting. What's the purpose of a robotic dog? We're seeing more and more of these things. Is it used for protection? What kind of protection? Against what kind of danger? Why a robotic dog and not a robotic cat or a monkey or bird, a giraffe, perhaps a humanoid robot? And how will a robotic dog respond when danger is detected? Is it going to start to growl and let the owner know something's wrong? Will it bark? Will it attack by biting a person or animal it suspects to be dangerous? Will it operate far less like a traditional dog? Will we be able to talk back and forth to our robotic dogs? Will it communicate silently through text messaging or video chat or something more elaborate? How will a robotic dog deal with other robotic dogs? Will it learn to play with the other dogs? And then will we be using robotic dogs to rob a bank or to assassinate somebody or kill a gang member? Will robotic dogs have the ability to jump, run, swim, fly, climb the side of buildings, or all of the above? And does the right to bear arms also give us the right to own a robotic dog that's armed? One of the most important advancements yet to come with AI will be the advancements in the conversational interface. But first, we need to build the brains of the robot. When I'm talking about this, every time we talk back and forth to our devices, whether it's Siri or Cortana or Alexa or Google, we're actually building the brains of the robot. That we're building the mnemonic interface there. And so with the right kind of neural networks, it'd be possible to build this knowledge base to operate businesses of the future. So the bots I'm referring to could actually be autonomous drones, driverless cars, robotic dogs, or our buddy bots. I'll talk about buddy bots here in a second. But much like plumbing a house 100 years ago, very soon we're going to have hot and cold running AI coming into our houses. Young people today are going to be our future designers, the future business owners, our future politicians, researchers, dentists, doctors. They're going to inherit a world that's filled with problems, aging infrastructure, corrupt government, ethical dilemmas, and impossible situations. At the same time, they'll use tools, systems, and techniques that make them exponentially more capable, productive, and accomplished. These disconnects will give rise to a whole new breed of bots, including the smart home buddy bot. So if you think about wearing a pair of glasses like I'm wearing up here, they're just a pair of smart glasses that can actually record and see what we're seeing and hear what we're hearing. And then through other sensors, we can actually record what we're feeling, we're touching, smelling, taste, and everything we're experiencing. And then suddenly, we're able to record everything. We're able to create a digital twin of everything that's going into our heads. So they're going to coach us through a conversational interface as well as visually through other mnemonic cues. So the AI buddy bot will develop a friendly rapport with everybody. It'll be talking back and forth with you. It'll be responding to positive exchanges, jokes and happiness, as well as negative exchanges with frustration and anger. The buddy bot will be your personal buddy, your best friend, the person you can tell your most intimate secrets to, confide in, share your hopes and dreams. It'll be your personal therapist, your cheerleader, your protector, the guardian of your privacy, and its conversational coach, able to finish your sentences for you. It'll be the friend you always wish you had, the source of unlimited information, your single most valuable possession. It'll be able to assess what skills and ability you have. It will know where your passions lie, what topics you're interested in, what your objectives are, and what success looks like to you. It will understand your situation, will help clarify your goals, and suggest ways to make good decisions. The AI buddy bot will transition into assessment bots and coach bots and teacher bots, but they'll help us step through the options and support our decisions. See, when we start trying to design machines to replace humans, we often forget how complicated humans are. So the buddy bots will set the stage for accomplishment-based education and learning. So as an example, if you want to, most people when they go through college, they come out of college with very little that they can actually point to as an accomplishment. But if you wanted to actually accomplish something like writing a book, you can have a coach bot that actually coaches you through the whole process of doing the outline for the book, creating the story arc, developing the characters, and then writing a great ending for the book. And then you have something, you've completed something, you can show your friends and neighbors. The same goes as if you want to design a video game, or if you want to invent a product, or produce a documentary, or launch a new business, or found a movement, or produce a podcast series, or just become an expert on some topic. You can have these coach bots actually coach you through the process of becoming an expert. So the future is ours to create. We're entering a world that requires higher caliber people, and it's preposterous for us to think that our existing systems are going to start producing better results. Each of us has only one mind, one body, one life. Whatever we can do to increase our capabilities will make us more valuable on the world stage. So with the help of AI, people in the future will view themselves as being in a constant state of improvement. So over the coming decades, we will become exponentially more fixable, trainable, repairable, improvable, and even reinventable. So it will no longer be about who we are today, but who we have the potential to become. Ironically, we need to step aside so AI and automation can help us unlock the person we were truly meant to be. So we're entering a period of unprecedented opportunity. Why is this so important? Because humanity is going to change more in the next 20 years than in all human history. At the same time, we're creating many more breaking points. Our risk factors will increase exponentially. And our children's children, who haven't even been born yet, they're counting on you. They're counting on the people in this room to make great decisions. As Steve Jobs says, right now is one of those moments when you are influencing the future. But sometimes our best efforts just look a lot like this. Yeah, pretty much just like that. So any of you that are interested in my book, Epiphany Z, it's available in Korean and Chinese as well as English. It's available at Amazon and most booksellers. If you're interested in our course, Future Like a Boss, go to futurelikeaboss.com. You can read more about it there. Our podcast is the Futurati Podcast. Trent Fowler and I do that once a week. And for more information, you can sign up for our free newsletter. And I thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you.
I'm not going to be around for all this. Digital twins doing their job. Please, I'm exhausted. And you said digital twin back together.
We're running a little bit behind schedule, so going to kind of speed things up a little bit. There, 3 seconds. Art is our next speaker. Or Shula, where? Oh, you do. Thank you. That was great. I'm just moving fast. Yeah, of course you were. Always are. So our next topic is about Microsoft. Friend, foe, enemy, swimming in the shark, or in for safer waters. As we talked about this, putting this in the program, we're trying to figure out who should present. I wanted to introduce you Art Scholler. A lot of you may not know him. The analyst community certainly knows him very well. He's got something like 40 years of experience. He recently retired. He's worked, focused on the UC industry, the UCaaS industry, the contact center industry, the CCaaS industry. He's worked at Microsoft, he's worked at Gartner, he ended up at Forrester. Extremely insightful person, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. So, sorry.
So first of all, I want to express my thanks to the folks at CCA putting me on after Thomas. Your minds are so expanded right now. How in the world do I bring you back down to earth to talk about Microsoft? So I'll try, okay, but I'm going to need your help. So first of all, you know, one of the things Thomas said is that as human beings, we look more to the past. And what you see up here is a top of the food chain predator who has evolved over millions of years to be a killing machine, okay? And what you're seeing here is a bunch of other fish swimming along with the shark. So I want to see if we've got any marine biologists in the room, a little bit of audience participation. Why in the world do these fish swim along with the shark? Anyone got that? No one. Oh, I got a hand over here.
They want to feed at the scraps.
They want to feed off the scraps? The answer is no. Anyone else? Protection? Answer, no.
They clean the shark.
They clean the shark. Close. The shark cleans them. It's for exfoliation. So here we have a instance where they're going for a spa treatment in exchange for the possibility of instant death. So I think that sets the context for what I want to talk about today in terms of swimming with the shark or heading for safer waters. Now, first of all, you know, this is me, and the reason that I put this up here is I want you to understand the lens through which I'm going to share the observations about Microsoft. You see a lot of logos up here, you think, boy, this guy can't hold a job. Right? But there's going to be a couple of anecdotes that I want to share from my, 47 years of experience in IT that leads us to some of my discussion and some of the pillars in terms of how I think about Microsoft. Down here, Olin Corporation. This is a young kid fresh out of college cranking IBM mainframe, COBOL, and 360 assembler code. Anyone recognize those? Olin Corporation ran a ETN, electronic tandem network, PBX's network, so you can do 5-digit dialing across the entire corporation across the country. We had a problem. Running a centralized attendance service, 5-6 people taking calls, directing calls, looking up numbers, the mainframe application really had awful response time. Cool, okay. Well, I looked at all of this and I said, you know what, we're manually entering the phone numbers into a directory system on a database. Why don't we just grab the numbers from the switches? Oh dear, my son, thou shalt never connect a computer to a PBX. 1977. Little did I know that that concept would be a main thread throughout my entire career. The time I spent at AT&T and Lucent, I was within the group that led to Avaya. I had the privilege of being one of 3 product managers for the call center team that led to Avaya today. What happened during that time frame? I was assigned to roll out the first wave of computer telephony products. Folks remember TAPI, T-SAPI? Any recognition? I see a few shaking heads in the audience. I was the T-SAPI guy. Okay. The executives, and Blair, you may remember Carl Pavarini as being one of the AT&T executives at the time. One of the objectives of getting behind T-SAPI and partnering with Novell was to ensure that we would not receive our next set of switch PBX specifications from Redmond. This was 1990. So there was fear and uncertainty and doubt in the business communication system space, even going back then. I even had one Bell Labs executive say, "My goodness, this will suck the brains out of the switch." Yeah, I still got my funding. And yeah, it was still a very interesting time on that journey of trying to smack computer systems together with communication systems. The lens through which I'm going to share my observations today is I have hopped back and forth between the analyst community and the vendor community 6, 7 times, vendor, analyst. Again, this guy couldn't make up his mind as to what he wanted to do when he grew up, but it gives me an interesting lens to be able to share with you my observations. Now, granted, there's a little more of a bias towards the end user views, which I think are important, and to a certain extent, even though I spent 2 years in SMB, more of a mid-sized to Fortune 10 corporations. Fair enough in terms of how I'm going about this? Okay. Well, I would assert to you, and I will make the proof during the rest of this presentation, that if you think you're going to be swimming with the shark, you're going to need a bigger boat. Okay? So we're going to stick with that shark theme. So I wanted to list right up front, what are some of the risks of hanging out with the shark? So let's put them right up front here. It's an incredible opportunity. Those who do all the quantitative, and you won't be seeing a lot of quantitative from me today, there is an addressable market that is large. There's a lot of teams out there. You'll see a graphic on that. But, it also attracts a lot of other fish. So how do you differentiate? Microsoft themselves, Janet had a great presentation yesterday about branding. I love that. But at the same time, how do you elevate yourself in the midst of all the competitors? But Microsoft themselves has a huge amount of mind share and account control. That is a risk. I'll talk about that later. You fill in some gaps. You create solutions. Anytime there's PowerShell hanging around in a Microsoft portfolio, it's an opportunity to build something so the job for IT is not as hard. And Microsoft is not the greatest at SMB, but you know what? Maybe they can start to fill that gap. And if you, in essence, what I'm calling for is a balance of your investments. But if you over-rotate on Microsoft, you incur these risks. So actually, just want to build this one out. Actually, want to just go back here, just as a level set. One big secret, one big reveal of this conference is, I'm going to tell you folks, Microsoft is a big company. Got it? All right, now half of you are going to head for the exits. This guy's really insightful. But we need to look at the history so I can make this point of Microsoft's investment in comms, business comms. What's not depicted here, actually, the chart is incomplete. If we go back to Windows 95 and 96, we had that thing called NetMeeting. It was awful, and it didn't work well. Someone yesterday said even Teams Mobile doesn't work well, but boy, people still try to use it. Prior to Office Communication Server 2003, 20 years ago, Microsoft started on this journey acquiring a company called Placeware, and that meant that Microsoft would be working with you to bring web conferencing to audio conferences. 20 years. So what I mean by Microsoft being a big company is that they're even more rare amongst the tech firms, that they're willing to invest and stay with it, and invest and stay with it, and invest and make a few mistakes, and stay with it, and stay with it. They're not going away. And so you need to look at this through the lens of the evolution of Office Communication Server that then became Lync, that then $8 billion to buy Skype, and then turning into Skype for Business, and then turning into Skype for Business Online. See the whole thread here? It's a 20-year evolution. Microsoft not going away and sticking with it and continuing to fill in the gaps and compete in the marketplace. But let's look at what that journey looks like. Here is the growth of Teams. Nice, real upward graph here, and month over month and year over year, continuing to grow at an astronomical rate. And for those of you wanting to build your business case and wanting to go to Q Advisors to find someone to help with funding, well, I'm going to grab 0.5% of these. Cool, big business. I'm going to sell direct routing to that. Cool, big business. And it's right. It is a large addressable market. When you look at the millions of Teams users, the ones that are truly using telephony is smaller. So there is, without question, a lot of upside. So swim with the shark. Great. But let's look at the dynamics of how Teams spins up in a mid to large organization. This comes from my literally hundreds of inquiries during my time at Forrester, watching Microsoft Teams grow. Think of how we have collapsed our definition of UC into calling, meeting, and messaging. You need to understand this dynamic. For many of you, your lens is the telephony, the calling component. But the reason there's so much out there, and maybe I'm preaching to the choir and you already know, is call it 2016 or 2017, we all hyperventilated about messaging. It's going to solve world hunger. It's going to kill email. Here comes Slack. Some of us as analysts looked at this and said, say what? You know, we had this internet relay chat thing. When I was with Microsoft in 2006, I did a tour of Manhattan, met with all the large financial services firms, Fidelity Investments, Goldman Sachs. You run through the list. They wanted to go with Office Communications Server. They wanted to rip the head off and integrate it with their other trader desk operations. But they said, you know what? You have messaging, but it's not persistent. And that's the key to this kind of messaging. It is persistent. And so, geez, 2006, and now it became the bright new thing, and it was supposed to kill email. Well, here we are in 2023. Any of you not using email for business anymore, raise your hands, please. There's your data point, okay? So it didn't kill email. It is persistent chat. And why did the financial services firms want to use persistent chat? The gold desk in Tokyo, when it's going to bed and you want to do round the sun trading, you want a persistent messaging group so that New York or London or whatever can simply pick up and run with it. What did the financial services industry do? They used Jabber. And that begat the XMPP standard because there's two sides to a trade. Microsoft said to Zig Serafin, corporate vice president of UC at Microsoft, we like Parlano, we're using Jabber, we'll use you if you buy Parlano. Ultimately, Microsoft bought Parlano, integrated it into Office Communications Server, and then all the FinServ companies moved over. So the shark can move, sometimes slowly, but sometimes do things to quash a market. I would assert to you that nice $27 billion funeral for Slack going over to Salesforce. And recently in a Wall Street Journal article, one of my friends and peers at Forrester is quoted here, we really don't see a lot of interest from Salesforce customers for Slack. We don't get it. Microsoft Teams is really dominant. Now that's not to say that your messaging solutions that are either through your UCaaS partners, I really liked Glip when RingCentral bought them, and I think they did an excellent job of retooling their client to integrate messaging, to integrate Glip, to integrate calling, and oh, by the way, extricate Zoom, because it was really inside their solution and they had to get Zoom out of there. But here, the reason I put this up here is that this is 99% of the time for mid-sized to large organizations, you spin up messaging first. It's easy. And then you have the weird science of having a conversation with a messaging architect about the failure of, hey, you know, the messaging thing went so well, we turned on voice. And then it sucked. The messaging team did not speak at all with the networking team about this thing called QoS and tagging packets and making sure that teams worked. So from the context of understanding and my lens of seeing Microsoft Teams explode within organizations, it's been messaging first. So understanding that as an addressable market for you is when is that compelling event for calling when they're going to jump from messaging. Now, remote work really helped the market explode. We all know that. And now the tech companies overhired and they're laying off because it's like, wow, now people are asking questions about my Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. I only need this much instead of this much. I want to optimize my licenses. In fact, I did see in the news last night that it is rumored, it's being reported by Reuters, even Microsoft is going to, what was it, Jordan talked about it being a contagion at this point. So some nice thoughts for people at Microsoft. There's supposed to be 5% layoff. In my experience, I've been on the layoff side, I've been on the remaining side. There's also the remorse of the remaining. So nice thoughts for Microsoft employees. But this pandemic world, and at Forrester, we did a lot of future of work. I did a future of meetings report. This hybrid thing is truly an opportunity. It is a method that you can use Teams to really enter into accounts as a trusted advisor. And I will make the case that it's not just talk, and it could be something that's even a bit recession-proof, but at the end of the day, these gyrations that are going through, and now you've got Disney, you've got Tesla saying, in fact, Tesla saying, if you don't come back to the office, you're fired. Disney saying 4 days a week mandate. We're still gyrating, folks. And in the midst of that change, your role knowing comms and how comms applies to a hybrid work environment is super important. So here at the end of the day, what did it do to meetings? We know all this. It exploded. It changed Zoom from a consumer brand to a business brand. And you've got many enterprises wrestling with WebEx, Zoom, and or Microsoft. Again, a role that you can serve as a trusted advisor here from a meetings perspective, but as organizations try and retool what they do for hybrid, you've got an opportunity as to what to do with rooms here. But at the end of this day, we've got the messaging thing going first. The pandemic drove meetings. All of them responded and had to really ramp up the resources in their infrastructure at the beginning of the pandemic. Everyone was going 9,000 miles an hour. Even Microsoft published guidance that Office 365 is going to have some response time problems. Real-time presence updates will be impaired, so don't trust them. Real-time meetings got to go from 1080p down to 720p. There's one other thing that they guided people that, hey, it's not going to perform as well. But all of this, in essence, says that from a meetings perspective, remember, message, meetings, and calling is an opportunity. There is churn. There is a question. There is Microsoft, but there's opportunities in there to perhaps introduce something else. Here's an example of a firm that, because I want to describe to you what is the attractiveness of Microsoft. Many IT organizations that I talk to say Microsoft is a strategic supplier. And we are going to use Microsoft. And even in that messaging discussion, I always heard that it was the developer teams that were absolutely rabidly loyal to Slack. But I saw the beginning of the end for Slack when in like 2019, before the pandemic, I had calls with some major enterprises, 80, 90, 100,000 users. And they said, yeah, we've actually moved the developers off of Slack onto Teams. Slack, $10 a month for enterprise Slack. You get security, you get management tools. But we already have Teams for free. So this company, Microsoft, is strategic. They want to go all the way to E5 because they've got a lot of people tin cupping the expense of getting to E5. But look at this from the lens of an opportunity for you to swim with the shark and say, how do we connect the dots for Teams? 11 countries. They even wanted to go with calling plans, but they were concerned it was too expensive. So yeah, okay, compete on price. But second of all, how do they extend into countries that Microsoft is not in from a calling plan perspective? Bulgaria, a couple of others. This is a large multinational that I can't name them, but think the word oil change. Okay. They flew me out for an entire day to talk with their team about the strategy of, we're really tired of Avaya and the MSP that is managing Avaya for us. It was the clunkiest contract I'd ever heard in my life. And we want to jump both feet into Teams. And we've done the Skype for Business thing. We're looking at Office 365. We're using NICE and Contact. In fact, they still wanted to leave some of the Avaya IP offices in those Eastern European countries to simply act as a SIP gateway, to get on-net, off-net calling bridges into that geography. This is a place for a trusted advisor, communication service provider like yourselves, to come in and say, you know, you just spent a day with Forrester, you kind of confirmed as to what this looks like, but boy, this is going to take a lot of work to do. You can swim with the shark here and enable Teams, and there's enough complexity here instead of just straight, simple direct route. Okay. Voice. I put up 8x8. It's not that I'm promoting 8x8. It's just that every UCaaS vendor and every one of you, more than likely, has a strategy to phone enable Teams. Now, that's a fairly simplistic term I've used. There's all sorts of different ways to do that. But, you know, if Teams is there for messaging and we're using a lot of it for meetings, maybe we actually might want to make some phone calls, although how many meetings today supplant the phone call? There are many ways to do this, but there are a lot of complexities that come into play. You, as a communication service provider, can either partner with a UCaaS vendor, or all of you have your own private label solutions, more or less. So this opportunity, yeah, I can get 0.5% of the Teams addressable base. Wow, I've got a big business case, but be measured and careful about it. So many times, and this is where there's risk, so many times in my conversations with enterprises, there is the E5, E3 discussion. That gap between E5 and E3 is where you live. Enabling calling, and is it just a cost play? I really would encourage you to make it much more than a cost play, but it is an opportunity and an insertion point into the account to say, instead of all up Microsoft calling plans, et cetera, and Microsoft's cloud PBX, you right now can fill that gap. And you, most of you already know this. The problem is, will the shark all of a sudden turn on you? It's a real important chart here. What happens if cloud PBX drops down from E5 to E3? Boom. Well, will Microsoft do that? I mean, I'm not going to say I'm hearing any rumblings that they're going to do that, but, you know, could they literally turn on a dime and look at the cost of the calling plans here? What happens if they flip the switch and change that pricing to be more competitive? Will they do that? Have I heard they're doing that? This is where the shark can turn pretty darn quickly and not have to do all that much. More of an administrative and a pricing, and certainly what happens with partners from margin uplift, et cetera, but hey, shark's sitting there, turn pretty quick. There are, and I'm not going to drain these, multiple ways to enable voice with Teams. Now, if we look at managed direct routing, tends to be the more prevalent and popular route to do this, but there's more than one way to skin a cat here. And at the end of the day, Microsoft calling plans have limitations. So you can swim with the shark here. If you're trying to sell to a hospital, which I don't think many hospitals in the US want to use Teams for calling. I spent 2 years selling PBX at the hospital. In fact, I lost every sale. AT&T switch was ghastly expensive for a duplicate processor system, so Nortel walked in and cleaned my clock. But, you know, there are certain verticals, et cetera, that are look at Microsoft's SLA and say, no, thank you. They're gonna look at Microsoft's pricing, which they could change and say, no, thank you. And you can fill in some additional countries, and we all know you can fill in the analog devices that are still out. So there's certainly opportunities to swim with the shark here, but that prior chart, 2 prior charts, is where I show you that, you know, Microsoft is starting, and who handles technical support fund. So many of you during the conversations when I was here, Operator Connect. I want to be on Operator Connect, or I'm already on Operator Connect. And it's like, it's nirvana, right? That's just one page, folks. There's a lot of them. Who controls the branding here? It's right within Teams admin. So it's just your little logo up there with AT&T and Verizon and everybody else, and it's like, cool, I'm gonna get Operator Connect, but who has account control? Who has brand control? So don't get me wrong. This seamless access, and if you do the marketing that Janet talked about yesterday, that your influencer network drives an opportunity to you without a sales call and just a click, get phone numbers and connectivity. You know, I just think that Operator Connect is a benefit and a real threat. Period, full stop, okay? You fill in PBX gaps. Multiple times I've been through the evolution of PBXs from analog to digital to server-based to voice over IP, voice over IP to cloud. And every time the new disruptive vendor says, 600 features in a PBX, who needs them? I'm like, you know, they're there for a reason. Somebody asked for them. And so there's a number of things here that you can fill in the gaps with your cloud PBX, and great. But, you know, even though apparently this layoff is going to hit Microsoft, is going to hit more of the development teams, just take it slowly but surely, fill in more of the gaps here. So really understand the risk. Are they really jumping on this? No. Did they jump on messaging with both feet? Absolutely. The mission was to kill Slack. And Microsoft woke up at the beginning of the pandemic and said, wait a minute, we've done enough for Slack. There's this meetings thing going on. I never saw Microsoft move so fast to iterate with meetings to catch up with Zoom. So they shifted their focus from Slack to Zoom. And they moved damn fast. So it's, if you're gonna, you know, think that you're gonna swim with the shark here and fill in these blanks, just be ready. Now, there's a white space, and many of you have talked about CCaaS. I love CCaaS. Again, I was in the call center business in its early days at AT&T. Been a great ride. But at the end of the day, and I'm gonna quote Sheila B. Smith here, CCaaS moves so slowly, even more slowly than the migration of a PBX. Why? Call center managers do not want to migrate. I am sorry. Yeah, maybe a few of them that think about CX, but you know, the operational managers that run contact centers just come in the morning and they're just slammed. You need to handle your service levels, and in fact, we want you to cut your headcount by 5%. It's perennial. They don't want to migrate, and so it moves oh so slowly. I agree with Sheila here that from the Jeffrey Moore across the chasm, CCaaS has crossed over, and we're getting into the mainstream of the marketplace. Tons of upside here for contact center, and it is more or less white space for Microsoft. Yes, I was at Microsoft 2008. Sig Serafin asked me to join the team that was evaluating what to do about call center back then. We did the beauty contest of no less than 11 firms marching through Redmond, and who should we acquire? I liked Wycom. They came out of Finland, the innovative, Nordics. Hosted Microsoft Windows Server, was a great product. But back then, Microsoft made the equity investment in Aspect instead, that sent Aspect sideways, okay? And they've never really recovered from that. And when we did a big readout of the acquisition strategy, Jeff Rakes, who Zig Serafin reported to, said, when we're breaking up, do we possibly want to revisit that question about Avaya? 2008, long time. So now, digital contact center from Microsoft has now been launched. But Microsoft is misfiring a little bit because I've encouraged them. I did some research for them at Forrester. I said, if you had CRM, contact center, UCaaS, all singing from the same script, you'd be a powerhouse. What team was not showing up to that research effort? The Teams team. I have seen in the marketplace a signal that there is a niche of people who truly want a contact center that runs on Teams. I'm not sure why. Okay, there are certainly some more niche-y type use cases that benefit that, but at the end of the day, your UCaaS partners or you as well enable a Teams collaboration for a contact center agent. At the end of the day, there are many CCaaS vendors out there to partner with for your own homegrown solutions. It is a market that you do not access. Oh yeah, much larger, arguably. But you've got the cost of contact center specialization. This is period, full stop, thou shalt must do that. That revenue is not accessible. Short maybe 20, 30, 40 seat contact center. That revenue is not accessible unless you attach specialists who can marry your solution, your technology to the operational model of the contact center and convince the contact center manager who does not want to migrate, I will help you. I will be the least disruptive of the solutions. I will benefit, and after you lift and shift, which they all do, lift and shift, you might be able to optimize after that. So, but there is kind of this narrow demand of having a contact center solution that runs with, on, for Teams. Good partner, 365 anywhere, and this came up when I got to go over to Zurich for 3 days. Large global insurance company, really focused on employee experience. They paid a lot of money to have them help out with vendor selection for their 35 position internal help desk. This is HR, IT, et cetera, et cetera. They had some really weird requirements. The existing system was hosted by Swisscom with legacy Genesys. And they marched a bunch of vendors through, full demos, full evaluations, nice in contact talk desk. But the one that really, truly, and for these vendors who integrated with Skype for Business, had a lot of difficulty because Microsoft didn't open up the APIs for a long time to allow the integration with Teams to do what they need to do. They need agent state. They need to run an ACD. And presence is not quite the most reliable real-time state of a person's work. So they needed those hooks for both telephony and for agent state. But again, if you want to team with one that, and part of swimming with the shark and being attracted to Microsoft, digital contact center is kind of in the margins, but you can be a partner to Microsoft in this white space where there are some good solutions. Okay? So here again is where the shark can shift at any moment. They've recently announced that, oh my gosh, for $10 per user per month, you can get these extra goodies. I'm really scratching my head on this one. I look at this list and say, if I've got 1,000 users, am I going to pay this much per month to get live translated captions, timeline markers in the Teams, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know. This again, where bundling and pricing from Microsoft can put you in a very risky position. So then you can do CPaaS. And I loved yesterday's panel. You don't sell CPaaS, you sell use cases, you sell solutions. You sell two-factor authentication that's easy to integrate with e-commerce. You sell appointment reminders. You sell something that's relevant to a certain business user in a business place. I am a great fan of buy everything you can and build if you must. My constant running conversation with Jeff Lawson at Twilio, since he's always talking about developers, is like, it ain't the API. Because if that's your model, Twilio, you got to live on marking up minutes and messages. Get them wholesale from the carriers, slap an API on top, and the developers are supposed to, solve world hunger. And then you're living on the markup margins on minutes and messages. No, please, sell solutions. Azure Communication Services has CPaaS capabilities. It's maybe not quite mature at this point in time, but you can add value, but you can also swim against the shark. I like the education marketplace, not just because I sold to it for 2 years, but there are opportunities because the real innovative ones were going virtual even before the pandemic. I show Barco because I like them. They've got a distinct focus on this space. And this is more than just your classic video conferencing room. You need to serve the role of the professor who's teaching the class. You need to serve the role of the 100 students who are attending the class. You need to make it easy for the professor to set up and run and present and have whiteboard and have all those integrated solutions. This is an opportunity. Do you all do this? Maybe not, but I think it's some white space that you can fill in that, yes, does this work with Microsoft Service Hub? Maybe, maybe not. It could be something else, but it's some white space to go somewhere else. The teams may not be great at it. When we looked at the future of work and the pandemic hit, I had inquiries with many organizations that at the time were saying, I've got the wherewithal to spend money because we're downsizing our square footage, we're retooling our conference rooms, and so what we need is your insight, Forrester, as to really make hybrid work instead of it just being a marketing term. And there's things that can be done with meeting rooms to accomplish that and make the office attractive for people to come into. So yeah, if you're Tesla, you're fired unless you come in. But for many organizations, it's like, hey, for our employee experience, we'd like to make the room a more collaborative space. I am a huge believer in part of that hybrid work solution. I think it's really time for whiteboards. So again, I'm emphasizing to you that meetings and meeting rooms is a place to not only swim with the shark, but team up with someone like a Bluescape, or Dialpad, for example, is reselling Miro. That when someone's remote and there's a bunch of people in the room, it's not the talking heads in the little windows. I mean, I'm 6'7", I don't fit in a little window too well. But when we're marking stuff up on the whiteboard, we really bring those remote workers, because they can do it at home as well, into the conversation. Virtual conferences. Microsoft has a solution that's not bad, but during the pandemic, everyone, Zoom and Cisco, in fact, Cisco acquired a company, I'm forgetting the name. You might think of this as a bit of a niche market and it's spiky traffic because the conference spins up, I need big pipe into some location, then I turn it down. But this area is under churn right now, and we did a deep dive primary research for one of the UCaaS vendors. And it basically said your buying center is someone else, it's the CMO. The CMO is not happy with the meeting solution that IT has selected to do virtual conferences, virtual events. And so being a specialist that brings in a great solution for meetings and for events is really an opportunity. One other, and this is my last one here, it's not a great one. In the old days when we sell a PBX, one of the first things that gets stripped off the bid to cut costs was station training. And then why can't people transfer calls? Okay, but here at Accenture, and 3 of my 4 years at Microsoft, I spent dedicated to working with Accenture to selling collaboration across the globe. They're big, they're 150,000 people. They had a team centralized on collaboration technology and services. How do they make an Accenture partner who's worth how much, more productive, what kind of tools, and they invested in adoption services. Verizon has a group that does this within Verizon Business Services. Again, not one that everybody does, but someone said yesterday, how do you make your solution, be it a partnered UCaaS, be it attached to Teams, or be it your own private label solution, how do you drive adoption and stickiness? You know, get on board with the adoption services. So summary here, this is too much chart real estate. I'm only going to summarize the summarization. You can swim with the shark, but at the end of the day, this is a top of the food chain predator who is a killing machine and can turn on a dime. And Janet's presentation yesterday about branding and the fact that Microsoft is doing is absolutely investment you can ride along with and get some of that addressable market. But you're riding along with almost everybody else. And there's also risk in terms of what Microsoft can potentially do in the future to knock you down, and I hate to say it, folks, to this audience, but knock you down to being just a dumb Bitcoin. I mean, I know I hate to say that for this audience, but you know, be really slick about what you do in your Microsoft go-to-market, your sales motion, your implementation motion, your service and support motion to do that. Fill in the blanks, but keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Really stay close, get involved in Microsoft Caps if you can to what Microsoft's doing, so maybe you can spot when they're going to turn. I consider meeting rooms, because of what's going on with hybrid, an opportunity where you can both swim with the shark, but also go to safer waters. Retool the rooms that many enterprises, and granted we've got the R word going on, recession, but getting that AV service if you don't have it already, or maybe acquiring one, you know, that's a place that you can insert yourself into an organization and get those whiteboards in there, because one of the biggest metrics for meeting rooms, for facilities managers, is occupancy. Big metric. If the rooms are only 20% occupied, then we got to get rid of the rooms. If the rooms are 80% occupied, great. We're doing the right job. So that can span other partners like Zoom and Cisco as well, if you so choose. Going to safer waters, doing something else other than Microsoft. Dave suggested, you know, maybe team up with some of the other hyperscalers. I like Google's meetings a lot. I think the technology is great, but you have to fill in a lot of the blanks with Google in terms of go-to-market, sales motion, and branding. This is not a top of the mountain for them. I'm sorry. And in my experience, we've had a lot of Google misfires. Let's call it something else. Let's cancel it. Let's spin it up, and so on. Amazon Chime. Do I have any inquiries from customers on Amazon Chime? A lot of radio silence on that. So I'm really encouraging you, swim with the shark or go to safer waters. I'm really inserting, you know, kind of an and in there, but a proper balance of your investments. And as Jordan and Q Advisors talked about yesterday, in terms of your projections, put a reality check on that. Really look at that very closely in terms of your expectations. If I can get 0.5% of Microsoft Teams seats, I've got it made in the shade. Direct routing is my path to nirvana. Balance it, folks. So in conclusion, thank you so much for allowing me to present my viewpoints today. Be happy. I think maybe we've got a break somewhere to, you know, talk about this a little bit more, but I think we're crunched for time and I don't have time for questions, which is too bad. But thanks very much.
We stick around for one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
So we're gonna formally end around noon today, so after that, if you stick around, or you guys, we kind of,
Yeah.
close.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Okay, real quickly, next I'll bring up Matt Townend from the Godot. Matt and the Godot group have been a really good, close partner with CCA for a long time, and I can't imagine what we're up for, but here goes nothing.
Number 30. Go Jags. Go Jags. I'm very proud to be representing the best sports franchise in Florida at the moment. Some of you will wonder why the English guy is wearing a Jags jacket and a Jags top. It's because 15 years ago they committed to come to London every year, and my little son said, we've got to support a team. I said, let's go Jags. And 15 years of misery, and at last I can wear this with, you can see the theme probably, with pride. So yeah, art's covered so much. And Joe said you get too much of a good thing. So a lot of you have seen me speak a lot of times. So they said, can you do 15 minutes? And maybe because we're running late, can you do it in 10? So, you know, I'll do my best. So I'm going to talk about what I'm seeing from the service providers' reactions to collaboration and competition. And a lot of you will know I run a business called Cavell. and we spend half our time helping service providers and vendors on their strategy, and a lot of time speaking to investors. And investors kind of have the attitude that I had about 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, which is kind of, it's all over. Like at 27-0, I'd stayed up for 2 hours at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I thought, well, there's no way we're coming back from this, right? They're going to win. So I'll go to sleep. And so I went to bed, and at 8:10, my wife nudged me and said, God, that was amazing. You must have enjoyed the 31-30 victory. And I said, well, not really. But that's kind of the attitude some investors have got. They say, you know, this is kind of all over the service provider. The collaborators are going to win. You know, it's all about Microsoft. It's all about Zoom. It's all about WebEx. And that's not what I believe. And you're going to have a slightly different view from me, maybe than you heard before. What's happening is you may have heard that all these collaboration leaders want you. They're out trying to get the service providers on board. They're being very aggressive. You know, what are the words of 2023? Their enablement and acceleration. All the 3 major collaboration programs have launched new enablement programs with service providers in the last 6 months. So Zoom, Cisco, and Microsoft all have very aggressive service provider enablement programs, and they all have accelerator programs as well, because they're desperate to work with some of the partners you've seen around here, like CPO and others, to help accelerate that change. So that's not the feeling of somebody, I don't think, who doesn't want to work and doesn't realize the kind of role that service providers have to play. So I think the backdrop as well, which is useful, and this will kind of tee up the conversation at the last point. And I know Art was talking from more of a larger enterprise perspective. When I look at a global perspective, the biggest priority, certainly to SMBs, is not collaboration. Their biggest priority is actually customer service. And I think we'll talk a bit more about that on the UC panel later. That's what our enterprise research says. Yeah, as we go higher, we go to larger enterprises, sure, they're all over collaboration. But the SMBs aren't all over collaboration. That's not their main driver. Their main driver is buying a business communication service which will help me with my customer service. So we've got to bear that in mind. Sometimes we think this is some zero game. Collaboration is, everybody is focused on collaboration, and that's the main driver for all businesses. And I challenge that very, very strongly. And you can argue about the numbers. We've got various enterprise research that basically says, at the ultimate, collaboration is more of a large enterprise game. And when you put telephony enablement on top of that, that's even more of a large enterprise game up to now. So yes, we have to swim with the sharks. Yes, we definitely have to think about these collaborators, but it's not, you know, it's not an end, you know, it's not the end of everybody, you know, it's not all going to be subsumed by those guys. I don't believe. I think there's a very strong role for the service provider, particularly in the SMB. Sure, you're in the large enterprise, as Art highlighted, you're going to come up against Microsoft, Cisco, you know, WebEx, or there's no question. I completely agree with that. But if you're in the SMB and you're certainly outside of even in the US, but if you're outside of the US, that's not what I doubt that's their highest priority right now. You can tell me different, but that's what I hear. So, saying all of that, we can take this approach, which some of us often do in our lives and our businesses. We decide to kind of just put our head in the sand and wait to see what happens, and wait to see how it plays out. I wouldn't advise that as a route. And if after this conference you feel so depressed, we see a whole layer of you out in the front with your heads in the sand, we know we've done a bad job. But these are some of the key questions that I'm dealing with from a strategy point of view, from investment. You know, it's kind of questions that if you have the unlucky situation of having me opposite you doing due diligence, I'll probably ask you. But, you know, is one size fit all? Clearly, if you're going into large enterprise, you have to have an enablement strategy with Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft. You can make your pick, you can choose your poison. But I do think there's a different option, and Dave was talking about mobile as well on day one. There's different options, for SMBs, which may be more mobile centric, which may want different solutions. So I don't think there's one solution fits all. I think you have to think about your strategy here. And Art made a very good point as well. How do I differentiate? Is a logo enough, right? So you go on these platforms, and do we all go and start to rename our companies? AA something, AA comms to get on the top of the list. How do we differentiate? And the big question that you're all probably thinking about is margin and revenue, really. So I'm sitting there working, doing due diligence. I did 20 deals last year on different cloud comms players around the world. And my question is, you've got 20, let's say you've got some between, in the US, you've got between 23 and $30 of ARPU. And if some of that, and maybe it's 70 points of margin, maybe somewhere around that. And you're going to replace that with direct routing or Operator Connect or something like that. And what we're going to get, $6 of revenue? I don't know, $6 maybe in the US. We're going to get what points of margin? Maybe 40 points of margin. And that's what investors get a little bit challenged by. They start to say, well, how does that make sense? So you've got to be aware of the transition, but you've got to look beyond that. I think there's lots of margin opportunities, and I've worked with a lot of the guys who have really embraced Microsoft. And where they make margin is sure, they may not make margin on the core product in the same way that you have traditionally, but there's also real new market opportunities. You might be able to enter a new market, either a large enterprise market, because you're now enabling Zoom or Microsoft or Cisco, which you would have before struggled to do because your platform may not have been as relevant to that audience. So there's new market opportunities you can enable. Also, around, whether it's a Microsoft, Cisco, Zoom, I'm not going to be particularly particular. There you go. But what we hear is it's about value-added services. There's lots of margin in, and we're going to talk later, but in things like analytics, recording, other integration, different services around the core. So when I talk to some of the guys who are the leaders in the Microsoft Teams enablement, for instance, they talk about, yeah, sure, we may not make the same amount of margin on the core product, but there is margin to be made. We've just got to think differently around the service. And I've talked to service providers who are starting to say we can make the same amount of margin we used to, believe it or not, when we look at this, the whole picture. The other question is whether you move into license sales. So obviously the other thing, when we're particularly talking about Microsoft, people will say, well, there's no money in licenses, Microsoft will only give me less than 10%, it's just not interesting. I think it's Chris here. Yeah. Pretend I don't say this, right? Don't report this back to head office. I saw a bit of paper handed to me by a service provider, which showed me the discounts they were getting on some of their licenses when they got to volume. And they were starting to say, we can make as much money as we used to, which is interesting. Now, just go and see Chris afterwards. He'll be able to fulfill any one of your pricing. But there is margin to be had, in going up the stack and in licenses and in other areas as well. So I don't think it's a net end game that we say, well, we've just got to think beyond just the product. We've got to think a little bit wider to what we do. And the other question, again, which came up in the previous presentation, was about specialization and verticalization. Should you use this as an opportunity to integrate and make yourself more relevant? How do you differentiate? Well, you make yourself more relevant. And I know my good friend Armand somewhere probably in the audience. I don't know. You've heard me enough. You probably not. Oh, he's there. Good. Well, I think you embraced Microsoft pretty well in the health, if I remember, as well as the hospitality, and you've done very well out of that. So, Armand, a lot of you know Blue IP, took that decision to embrace it in his sector and has been very successful. So it's not, you don't have to, and I think it may be a time to make you think a bit more like that. And the other thing is, I talked to the biggest Operator Connect provider, possibly in the world, and they said to me, Matt, there's no such thing as a pure Operator Connect solution. They don't exist. You know, they look like they exist because you see a nice spreadsheet, you see a nice page, but they don't exist. There's always a group you need integration. There's always a requirement for another set of people. It's all about integration still in Operator Connect to some degree. Sure, you'll take large parts of the organization on, but you might need to do direct routing to another group. You might need to offer some other piece. So no such thing as, in large enterprises, just a pure now, that's probably a lie. It's probably wrong. But I think the sense of it is right. That this is more complex than you think. It's not about just clicking and placing an order. So I would say that you have to swing the sharks. You have to not put your head in the sand. You have to realize that you have value. And in the SMB, there's a different aspect to this than they may be looking for other things other than collaboration from the large enterprise players. When we look globally out, by the way, these guys all have different market shares. You know, we talk about Microsoft doing really well. We talk about Zoom doing very well. If you look in Asia, Zoom does better. You look in different places, it's not a clear picture that this is a global context, that everything is the same. So you also have to take that into consideration. So, as usual, I've got you back on track in a minute, Joe. So, what we do, and we've been working with lots of service providers, working with vendors, working with themselves. You have to really think about where your opportunity is. You have to really look at what those strategic options are for you. And you have to make sure you equip yourself appropriately. I mean, pretty obvious, I guess. But I don't think it's a sum-zero game. I think the service providers have a big, important role to play in it. I think that's been recognised by the big collaboration players as well. You've just got to find your space. A couple of things I massively agree with Art on was the opportunity for meeting rooms. I actually went through the process of trying to buy a meeting room solution for my own company. And I basically couldn't buy it from my service provider that I used. We didn't have the option. Eventually, because I know the right people in Cisco, they got a random partner, audio-visual partner I'd never heard of, to give me a quote. But you know, it's time for this industry to embrace remote working and embrace these solutions and bring those to market as well. Because it's ridiculous that I go to my very large service provider who just can't offer those solutions to me. And it was very difficult as a customer to buy. And yes, you can buy lots of stuff from me if you want, as usual. Just I take all people's credit card and everything. But you know, that's really my thoughts. So that's what I'm hearing, that's what I'm seeing. I hope you enjoyed that short. And one last shout out to the Jags, yeah? We're going to the Super Bowl. And luckily, I know some very wealthy people in Arizona. Yeah, where is it? Jim, for instance, who knows everybody. And he's promised me that if we make it to the Super Bowl, I might be putting words into your mouth. We were going, yeah?
You have a place to stay and we're going.
Good man. Go Jags. Thanks.
Jim, all right. Jim, you didn't give Matt my room, did you? I'm not too worried about the Jaguars. But I'm not sharing the room with Matt either, by the way. Hey guys, our next speaker, Stephen Fair from, is it HP Poly or Poly HP? I'm not really sure, but it is HP Poly. Stephen Fair is going to talk a little bit about why they do the deal. Okay, so, come on.
All right, I think the first thing I want to say is I'm pretty sure that I should have worn my Bills jersey this morning, because I think there's a lot better chance they're going to Super Bowl than the Jags. But, I wish you good luck. I want to talk this morning. This is not a commercial for our products. I don't want to get into a product-oriented thing. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody, but really I want to go through why did HP buy us? What was the reason behind it? And what is it that we're going to do together as a new entity to help, bring a solution to market? I'll talk a bit about the hybrid world and why we think that that's the niche that we fit into. Certainly why Poly and some other things as you see here. So let's just get through it. So I think it was interesting, Enrique, who's my new CEO, was on and just talked about, how this is a unique opportunity in time for us as an organization to capitalize on the changes that have gone on over the last few years. Certainly we know that the hybrid working world has changed the way we all work. I'm sure all of you know how your day has changed. You no longer go to an office, sit in a box, or sit in a cubicle and work all day long. Now you're at home and you've got a whole new set of circumstances that are important for you to consider when you do your job every day. And what HP saw as an organization was how that was going to change dramatically, not just for the communications world, but for those who serve the computing world and create those working environments that we all are in every day. So it was a great opportunity for us to come together with them. Certainly was an opportunity for us as an organization to grow and to increase our view of the future as we move forward. So how do we work together? What are the things we do together? Certainly the HP brand is a trusted brand. The Poly brand and the voice side of things is certainly another trusted brand. But we really look at bringing together an overall architecture that's going to change the way people work. No longer will you be going to that box, as I mentioned earlier, but now you'll be looking for solutions that reflect how you work every day, and not just at home or in the office, but also on the go. All of us were here this week. I know I brought my headset and my mouse with me when I came this week, so I could do my work on the side as well. So it certainly has changed, and it's great to bring two different brands together. So what are the strengths of HP with Poly? Well, certainly the compute side and the print and the display side of Poly fits perfectly into the solution set that we're bringing to market. Having the compute, power and technology in the video room was perfect for the Poly. We had a lot of relationships with other compute organizations previously to this, but it was a great lineup for us to get our desk phones, our headsets, our video solution. It was a great fit for them. They wanted to reach at the end of that application space and say, how does the hardware fit in to the applications that we're now bringing to market? And how do we work together from a security perspective? Because security is not going away. Security is only going to get more and more important when you look at bringing all these different solutions together. So a great way for the two of us to bring our strengths and some of our productivity solutions together. So how does the future of work change? Well, we all know that we're moving from this world where we had an office where we went to work. Well, work isn't where we went. Work is what we do. And so we're starting to bring that notion into how we work with the organizations. We certainly want to make sure that we're reflecting the new work styles that are bringing to market. Every day, the people, the way we work has changed dramatically. And certainly what we want to make sure as we go forward is that we're being able to bring the right solutions for the spaces in which we're working in, because it's the spaces that have changed more dramatically than anything. Even the offices that we used to work in, when we go back to them, they won't be the same. I think Art talked about it earlier, how the spaces are now just for collaboration and how we use the tools, the whiteboards, the video rooms, the ability to people track and give you the meeting equity that you've had over the last few years during the pandemic is super important. Poly's been involved in this. It's great that when your research really comes to market. We've been doing persona research for 10 years, trying to figure out who are the workers that we are creating solutions for. We're not making solutions for places, we're making solutions for people and how they work in the spaces that we're working in. So these are the 6 personas that we've been talking about over the last couple of years and why they're important. But I think the interesting part about it is how they've changed. When you look at the personas of the people, of how they've evolved over the last couple of years during the pandemic when we were forced all to go home, you can see how some of them have really dramatically changed. The office collaborator has decreased significantly, but the remote collaborator, the person who's on a meeting, if you think about it, for meetings today, every meeting you're going to be on, I would say going forward, somebody's not going to be in that room. Whether it's you or whether you're in an office, where you've gone to a meeting to be there, because today we're going to go to our offices to collaborate with people. Otherwise, we'll just stay home and work. All right, so when we go to these facilities that are now our work locations, we need to have the right kind of tools to represent the kind of people who we are and how we work when we get in those environments. So I think just some interesting facts that are important as we go through this new hybrid working world and what people are saying. 79% of people say, you better provide me the right type of tools to do my role when either I'm at home or I'm in the office or when I'm on the go. Because if you don't, then I'm not going to be as productive as I can be, or maybe I'll just go work for another organization. And we've seen that people have been voting with their feet. If you're not giving them the right tools, you're forcing them into a certain kind of work environment, we are seeing people change their employments to make sure they're getting the right kind of technology to help. Headsets and mouses, as mentioned earlier, people are going to travel with it. So how do you create work environments when people get into an office so they can work productively when they arrive, and not just having to carry all of their information? If they just carry their headset and their mouse, they can really become productive in there. So what we've done is we've taken our portfolio and we're going to layer on more of the HP solutions as we continue to evolve under their guidance and leadership. But just from a work styles perspective, you can see we've got solutions for every type of person who works in these different environments today. So whether you're someone who's in the office a lot and you do want a desk phone, or you're somebody who's never in the office, but you want to have the right kind of headset to reflect the environments that you work in every day, we've created all these different work styles and solutions to represent those work styles for whether it's a video, whether it's a headset, or whether it's some kind of audio device, whether it's a USB speaker, or whether it's a desk phone, depending on the kind of work you have. The spaces in which you work in, was it 90 million rooms that are out there, only 10 million are video enabled. So there's a massive amount. Truth be told, that was the #1 reason HP bought Poly, was the video conferencing side of things, right? So when you look at the amount of opportunities that are out there today for these rooms that are going to be enabled with video in the future, whether it's a small room, large room, or a massive room for teaching, or large town hall kind of rooms, we've got solutions for every type of solution that you're out there. And whether you're in a Teams environment or Zoom environment, one of the large cloud providers, we have solutions for every single type of application that's in the cloud that's out there today. And whether it's an individual or a large room solution, we can provide that right solution for you. So when we design all of our solutions, I want to just quickly in this slide just talk about when we design things, what are we thinking about? We do design solutions today from the home environment. We do design them for those who are on the go and those who have a desk or the collaboration. We are designing our solutions every day with the new working world, and that's the basis of how we think through how the solutions will be used. So why is Poly, and how do I get myself on your decision tree when you're thinking about solutions? We are a quality brand. There's really almost a duopoly in this business today. There's a Chinese company that makes a solution out there we compete with every day, and there's ourselves. And between the two of us, we represent well over, I'd say almost 70% of the marketplace. So we are starting to exist in this really duopoly kind of competition that we're in. And we do want to separate ourselves from the others that you have a choice to choose from through the quality in which we bring to market. Our quality is above everything else that we do. It's not something we're ever going to compromise. We think it represents who Poly is as an organization. And whether it's on the audio side or the video side, we're starting to utilize a lot more AI technology. I'm going to show you a few videos here I think are kind of cool in a second. And the quality of what we do. At the end of the day, if you've got a video or an audio solution in your working world, and it's not of high quality, it renders it useless. You can't compromise what you choose from a quality perspective. And we want to make sure that when you do your research online and in the social networks, as we were told yesterday, make sure you look at the quality side, because it is a differentiator. This is one of the videos here I think we're going to see. We're not going to hear the audio. This is it. Okay, hold on. Let me go back. Is there a way to get the audio up on that slide? Okay, again, let's go for it. Oh, go ahead again. Yeah, we're not hearing that. Okay, well, what you really would have heard is a really cool thing. So the guy just wanted to,
Unique acoustic chamber design.
okay, let me go back, and I'll play it again. Here we go.
We're here today to show you the Poly Studio X50. I've got one right here, and we're also talking to you on one right now. What we're going to show you is how the unique acoustic chamber design allows everyone in the room to be heard clearly, no matter where they're sitting. I'm about 6 feet away.
I'm about 12 feet away. My voice should be heard as clearly as Joe's.
And I'm about 20 feet away. So not only does it make all of our levels the same, but the microphones are so good, you can even hear me whispering all the way in the back of the room. To learn more, visit us at poly.com.
So again, pretty cool how the audio pickup works. It is different, and that is why we feel that we're a different type of company than each other market. Let's do another one here that's pretty cool on the audio side.
When it comes to communication, the clarity of your voice is critical for your listeners. So how do you keep nearby sounds from entering the headset microphone and competing with your voice? That's acoustic fence technology. The Voyager Focus 2 is equipped with an array of 4 spatially aware microphones. It all begins with the microphone on the end of the boom. This microphone lets the rest of the mics know the most critical sound to protect, your voice. The other microphones, located on the outside of the boom and on each ear cup, are like the bodyguards. They focus their attention on your voice, then detect which noises should not enter. Let's do a quick demo to show the power of this technology. Whether you're dealing with a loud talker in the office or a nearby kitchen appliance, you need your voice to stand out. Now, here's my voice on the new Voyager Focus 2 headset. The result is truly remarkable. Your voice can be heard clearly in noisy environments. That's the power of acoustic fence technology by Poly.
So 2 fun, kind of cool ideas just to show you the way that the technology works. As I mentioned to you before, it's really about quality. We have a whole host of products here. I know out in the meeting area, they're on display. We have our open SIP units, which are the VBX and the Edge series, and there are native apps for Zoom and for Microsoft. There on the CCX series, we have our DECT wireless solutions that are there, and obviously our most famous conference units are there. So a very broad lineup, one that can meet any of the needs you have for any of the scenarios that customers are working with. And certainly we want to encourage you to go investigate these solutions and compare them to others in the market. I do want to talk just quickly about one solution set we just launched this month. It's our new Edge series. It's our new series of desk phones that are very different. The gentleman who designed them has designed some of the most iconic phones ever in the industry before. And I think he's done a super job here, integrating a lot of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technology right into the units. All the noise block AI we just saw on those videos is embedded in these units themselves as well. So some really high quality AI built into these phones. Diagnostic tools that are in there and the QR codes that we can put into these to help support the needs of your support organizations, or the diagnostic tools you want to use are built into these. We have all the accessibility features in there for the visually or hearing impaired. And certainly, and most importantly, during these times, the microband is important too. So a really cool new set of phones, and I encourage you, please look at them on the booth outside. But great technology isn't great without great people. And what I want to make sure that you know is that Poly has a very deep and broad set of resources to help work with you. Our teams are here to support you. We are here to make you successful. So please look into, and whether it's a business manager you want to talk to, or any of our enterprise teams, our government teams, or our mid-market teams, certainly our alliances. We have a broad group of people here to service you, and if you're not reaching into us, you're missing out. There's some supremely talented people here that really make us well prepared and well served to help you be successful. This is a great slide for us to say we're very proud. These are our partners. We work hard every day to continue this list and to grow with it. If you're not on this list, come and talk to me. I'd love to add you. And if it's something that you're investigating, please let us do that. But last slide, this is what I want you to walk away with. I over the last couple of years, we've really struggled with our supply. As of many organizations, I can tell you now it is fixed. I'm sure you've heard these stories from others, but I really want to make you understand that our inventory is completely back up. We have no backlog in any of our major products at all anymore. So if you had the unfortunate circumstance where we didn't supply you effectively over the last couple of years, I'm asking for a chance to re-earn your trust. Okay, so if you have those opportunities to look at some of these devices I've shown you today, please give us a chance to earn your business. We've aggressively changed our prices, and we want to make sure that you consider us in your decision tree going forward. The market has changed. Hybrid working is here. Come look at our solutions. Our pricing has changed, and I think the last thing is that we have a US-based team here to serve your needs, so please reach out to us. We want that chance to earn your business. So, Joe, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We're moving quick. I know it's like water down a fire hose. We have Kobe Nish coming up next, to a company you all know, Zoom. Kobe, one of our newest members, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joe. So we got the clicker.
Yeah.
It's always a good way to start. That's our poly partner, right? All right, so thank you for having us here, Joe, Clark. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend time and put together this presentation for a couple of items we're going to cover. Throughout the couple days, I've heard some interesting comments of people maybe not knowing exactly what we do at Zoom and where we're at in our platform. So we're going to address a few of those. We're also going to play with the demo gods, and we're going to bring in someone who couldn't be here from Asia, who's having tremendous success with our provider exchange go-to-market offer. So we're going to bring him in over Zoom, and we'll go through what are we doing in UCaaS and what are we doing inside of CCaaS and what we launched last February. I really appreciated Art's presentation. It was great to hear like someone with the sharks, but a lot of comments in there, and one of them that struck out at me was around the opportunity to go into CCaaS to have specialists focus in that area. And I joined Zoom almost 4 years ago. If anyone was at Zoomtopia 4 years ago, we showcased Zoom Phone that had presence and voicemail. There wasn't much else there. But it was built around this need from customers saying, hey, I'm dialing into my Zoom meeting over PSTN. It's calling me back. Couldn't you just add a couple more features to replace my PBX? Based out of that customer demand, we started, but to Art's point, we would have never got there having video conferencing sellers talking to PBX IT managers. And so I built out a team. We have about 180 people globally that, they're all ex-Cisco, Microsoft, Avaya, RingCentral. They talk that talk, and that's exactly what my team does, is overlay to our AEs and help them drive forward our messaging. So Zoom Phone, this is what you think of Zoom Phone. I may have won a bet with one on my team to put that in our slide deck, but it's so interesting. What I hear a lot about Zoom Phone is, hey, it's soft phone only, right? You don't support phones. You don't have recording. You don't have paging. You don't have the features we would need. And I can't dispel that enough. And that's where we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about over the last 4 years, what have we delivered and what are customers doing. We've also made a huge change away from being the killer app to a killer platform. And a lot of investments in this area that's taken many years, but going across what we did really, really well, right? We, in Foresight, had the opportunity of building a video-first platform. Cloud-based, SaaS-based. We weren't porting from on-prem. We weren't working through an acquisition. Where we built that has allowed us to continue to innovate and build across there very quickly. But this is our challenge, right? When we saw the pandemic and going from 10 million active users to well over 300 million a day, and we've seen the spike of Zoom take off from a meetings perspective, people think about Zoom as meetings first. And this is where we need a channel, we need our branding, we need marketing to help that. But there are lots of examples of large companies, whether the Fortune 5 down to the SMB, to healthcare, to education, that are doing things with us across that entire platform. And that includes team chat and whiteboarding and video and rooms. But from a meetings perspective, tremendous success. And this is where I don't think people realize how well we are doing. And we also live in a world where everyone has Microsoft, right? There are those Google shops out there, but we have to coexist. And what we find ourselves competing against is the user experience, delivering happiness to those users, and competing against good is enough, right? Is it good enough? I saw free in the slide earlier. Hey, it's just in the bundle, so shouldn't I leverage it? That's what we're competing against with. But I also think the environment we're in is good enough going to keep you competitive in the marketplace right now. Are your employees happy? So this is the challenge we all have. So tremendous success you see from a meetings perspective. How about from a phone perspective? It was funny, there was some comments about features. Would you need all those features? Surprisingly, yes. We've delivered over 1,000 Zoom Phone features this year alone. One of those customers in particular was a large financial service, a top 2-3 financial service customer in the world, replaced 130,000 seats of Cisco, moved to Zoom Phone, deployed 80,000 of those seats within 2 months. We announced that at Zoomtopia. But they had a ton of features, all built around compliance, recording infrastructure, things that you would not think about in your typical PBX environment that were critical in a financial service regulated environment. But those are things that have helped us expand. And we really focused on this customer first approach. Listen to customers, they will guide us. And if it makes sense that that's going to be something we're going to expand to others, double down there. And we took an approach, a couple of things we did early, right? We saw the market evolving to a lot of what people are doing today. But if we can get to a single bill, which is what customers were asking us for, can you bundle PSTN plus the PBX together? By the way, can you bundle that into a UCaaS solution for us? We see a lot of success. And so we went to market. We were now delivering that service in 47 countries. But about half our business is on our native PSTN, what we would call native. The other half is through our bring your own carrier partners that are out there. And so the people that are in this room, this is where our partnership is critical to deliver those services for customers. And we know you guys have those relationships. You have that trusted relationship with them. You already have the contract. So how do we work together to make it profitable for both parties? We'll talk about a little bit about the Gartner Magic Quadrant here in a second. It was good to see the slide earlier today. I'll show you the Zoom feedback that we received. And then 4 million seats. I think there was some mention about this. We announced 2 million seats after our January end of year last year. Last earnings call, 4 million. We announced that I think in August. And we have an earnings call coming up here in about a month and a half. You'll hear the next one. That speed of customer adoption of Zoom Phone has been impressive. And that is the challenge we have. When you think about hundreds of millions of users using Zoom Meeting, only 4 million on phone, very similar to the slide we saw in Arts around how many Teams users are there. Right? I think that's what we're all after. And you still look at a couple 100 million of on-prem users that are out there today. We don't hear happiness from those users. But those are also a little bit of the laggards, the pragmatists. They're looking for that reason to move, and I think the pandemic has given it to them. But how quickly do we get there with the right go-to-market? And I put up some customer names. These are all external referenceable customers that we've shared across, whether at Zoomtopia, at Enterprise Connect, or during our earnings calls. But most of these are customers with 10 to 50,000 seats. This is not an SMB solution. We do great in SMB, but we're very, very focused on across the board listening to those customers and delivering those features. And honestly, a lot of that approach was how do I replace a Cisco or an Avaya on-prem customer? That's where the low-hanging fruit is there. But we also have to compete against Teams, Ring, and 8x8 and others in that space, and we do extremely well. So from a Gartner perspective, this has been an interesting journey with Gartner, and I know you guys had the session yesterday. We continue to move up and to the right, and I know that means different things to different folks, and I would argue all day about the placement on these, but especially when you think of UCaaS. But I did want to highlight some of the things that Gartner specifically called out during their process of talking to customers. It kind of reiterates what I'm saying, explosive growth advanced telephony features, no gaps, strong telephony offering. And then the bottom one, and this is the bottom one is where we actually got digging when you dig into the report. Fully integrated omni-channel contact center solution. So this is why we launched in February. It was early when this went out, but I'd also argue who on that list other than 8 does have an integrated omni-channel solution. We're getting there, right? So we absolutely see this market evolving and disrupting with UCaaS and CCaaS coming together, and we think we have a very similar take as we did from phone. Now, back to our phone, soft phone. We do have a tremendous portfolio of hardware partners that are out there today. We go through TechVision, I think they were here. We certify all of the hardware. These are 100% supported from Zoom. So you pick up that phone, you don't call Poly, you call us. We back into Poly if we have to. But all of that support comes to us. And we have over 30 SBC manufacturers. Oops, blink. We have over 100 phones that are out there. And if I could get all of them on there, we would, because that would allow customers to migrate a lot smoother. But your Poly portfolio, your Yealinks, audio codes, all the Cisco and BP phones that are out there. There's several that are not listed on here. But we've definitely seen this move of customers coming back to the office and trying to figure out how do they use those devices. And, for instance, we talked about healthcare earlier today. We were doing quite well in healthcare. This has been an area that we honestly did not want to get into the first year or two. It is a difficult environment, especially when you start talking about critical care. But we're there now. We have some large critical care customers, hospitals deploying Zoom Phone. This would be an example you probably wouldn't think of having nurse call, doing a ring down. Poly's delivering this feature set for us, and the healthcare team at Poly has been very instrumental in building out those solutions with this. But it's not just there. As Stephen mentioned, the Poly CCX, or our Zoom Phone appliance, is an amazing device that we have really taken a different approach to how can we deliver this in a fashion that customers easily adopt. And so you'll notice here is QR code, take that desk over. So whether you're using our workspace reservation, where you might do that before you come into the office or do it on a wall board, but also, you think about touchdowns and hot desking and everything that's out there. I want those same controls. But if you notice on the video, it's a very similar UI. If you're using Zoom Meetings, you're using the Zoom app, this is going to be very familiar. So when we talk about user adoption, ease of use, and being familiar, we really focus hard at Zoom that it should just work. And I think we've proven this quite well from a meetings perspective. If you ever had to troubleshoot your grandparents or parents joining a Zoom meeting, hopefully that was a little better experience than in the past of other solutions. Like we hear time and time again, hey, it just works, it's seamless. And so this is that embodiment of having Zoom Meetings, Zoom Phone, a Zoom Room solution all in one, where not only can you make a phone call and it can be a great phone device, but it's also a video device, built-in camera, whiteboarding, shared content. And when you think about getting back to the office and those AV or those huddle rooms where it doesn't make sense maybe to spend $2,000 to $3,000 to outfit it, can I put a couple $100 device in there, fully enablement, and give that experience? So we're seeing a lot of interest in this. Let's see if we move forward. We're also things you maybe wouldn't think about Zoom. I didn't put a slide in here, but you may not know that we do a 5.9 SLA financially backed for all of our large customers. So we have a solution called Premier Plus, which is our support vehicle. Essentially, if you're a few thousand users, that's what you have at Zoom with a 5.9 SLA. Now, that's great, and we have amazing uptime. You can go check it out. But when we talk about those critical care, we talk about retail, we talk about a school district that may have an incident, it is critical that they have that uptime. And so through our SBC partners, we have something called Zoom Node that runs the Zoom Phone local survivability capabilities. From a phone perspective, those phone calls keep up. We can swing over inbound calls, your call queues, your soft phone, your hard phones, those all work inside of that environment and can continue to run for 24 hours. And you need this in those types of environments. And this is the area that we've continued to build out over 4 years. And it's something you probably wouldn't think about that we do. Second is we have this approach around best of breed. So we're very focused on this open platform. A lot of developer resources, people building around our SDKs for meetings, for video, phone, contact center, be out here soon. But from an app marketplace, I've met a few of the folks out here today that are already going through that work. So we have a very big app marketplace. There's over 2,000 apps that are out there from a phone perspective. We're almost up to 100. And you'll see a number of those launch, but also from a way of monetizing those. So we're looking at how do we drive our sales compensation for our teams to sell your apps, but also for your customers to be able to get those features. And some of those have been, you know, we came to market with Salesforce integration. We've had that for several years and several iterations on that. You know, Zendesk, Google, Microsoft, and others. And I'll talk a little bit more about Microsoft in a minute. But we're very focused on that workflow. Where does that customer want to be, and how do we embed telephony or meeting features inside of that? And then from a contact center, you know, when we launched the product, we knew we were not going to have a contact center solution right away. I don't think we're necessarily thinking that far along at that point, but we did know it's critical. And so if you're not aware, we took these 5 partners that we initially went to market with from day one, and we built and paired our cloud connections together so that you can take an inbound phone call in the Zoom phone, hit a call queue, have that transfer over to your Five9 or your Genesys agents. Those calls are all kept on net, so there's no additional external PSTN charges between there, as well as we continue to work with those partners to build things like presence integration, chat integration, be able to pull those people from the back office into those support calls. And that's really proven the ground of like, what could we do in a single application, single architecture? Now the shark in the room, Microsoft. On the, let's see, it would be your right-hand side, I guess you're that way, left-hand side, is our Microsoft Marketplace app that we had out for a while. Oops. Did you switch inputs? Okay, thank you. And this is freely available. It allows you to use the Zoom app inside of Teams and be able to launch a phone call, check your voicemail, be able to do meetings inside there. But we hear time and time again, like, I want the native Teams dialer, I want to have that native experience, I don't want to switch between apps. And so on the other side, you see our Direct Routing as a Service app that is about to come out. We were targeting GA this month. We decided to add a couple more features. So you'll see this in the next, hopefully, 2 months come out. Many customers on beta right now and great feedback. But what's unique about this is, you know, we've had some conversation about 8x8, and there's others that have built that, and that's really where they're seeing a lot of success. For us, the last thing we want is everybody living inside Teams from a user experience. We see time and time again, we go head to head. If you have end users giving you feedback, we're winning. We're winning the vast majority. If it's IT making a decision or the finance person saying like, don't we already have this bundle and is good enough, you're going to struggle. But a lot of those customers have some set of Zoom. And so we know that if there's those users inside of Teams, we want to make sure they're empowered. And it's not just direct routing as a service. This provides any of you provider exchange partners, BYOC cloud peering partners with us to deliver that to those customers and leverage your PSTN capabilities. But also, we've removed all the PowerShell nonsense of setting this up. So it's a toggle inside of Zoom. You toggle it, boom, calls are being sent inside the Teams client. When Teams goes down, if it goes down, like yesterday, then I just toggle that back and I send all those calls to the Zoom application. And those users just keep on going, nothing changes. And so we feel like this is kind of a nice in-between that gives those customers choice, but also full feature. And you know, the slide we saw earlier today, it's kind of comical at times, but all those gaps that were listed on Microsoft, we have none of those gaps inside Zoom Phone. Like there's none there. And so, you know, I've heard a couple of people like, hey, we could have recording to Zoom Phone. We could have 911 services to Zoom Phone. Those are all in there. We do nomadic 911. There's no cost to it. We do SMS inside US, Canada, UK, adding Australia. There's no cost to that. No cost recovery fees, recording, unlimited recording built into it. So a heavy focus on making sure we're very much driving a cost conversation. From an analyst perspective, we look at like what Metrigy and Forrester and Whitehouse have put together. Some really interesting articles. Like we don't need an army of engineers, PowerShell experts to deploy this. We very much focus on simplicity and getting customers out of the telephony business as much as they're wanting to. So we're seeing 60% less to deploy, less money to troubleshoot. Day 2 support is dramatically different. If you're building a managed service offering around that, it's something very much to consider. And then increased productivity. We all are seeing this collapsing of apps. But when Michael walked out, so when Michael Tesler was presenting yesterday, he talked about 3 things to compete on, 100% great. Price. We feel like we are not the most expensive one in the market. We will win on price. Brand. We have a really good brand. People know us. Pretty much everyone has made a Zoom call in the last couple of years. And then features. We feel like we're not missing those features. I think the one area that's not listed on there is that user experience. Is it delightful or is it, it's good enough? So can we empower employees to be a lot more productive and happy is a huge focus. Now on the cost side, there is a new solution we announced earlier this year called Zoom One. And we saw a lot of complexity of customers trying to figure out the math of, hey, I've got this amount of meetings users and I want to add phone and what does this look like and what am I doing with these different add-ons? And Zoom One combines all these into a single license. And this comes in a couple different options. We have our Business Plus, which includes our native PSTN services, but we're seeing a tremendous uplift in Enterprise and Enterprise Plus. So for example, in Enterprise Plus, not only do you get your users Zoom meetings, Zoom phone with your PSTN delivered on it, the translations that Microsoft's charging you $10 in premium is included in there, unlimited storage, unlimited common area phones, Power Pack licenses, Zoom Rooms, our Whiteboard Plus. There's a tremendous amount of features in there. And if you're a customer with over 5,000 users, you're not paying more than $10. So it's very, very aggressive. You're not going to be paying more than 25, but we tear that down. So from a TCO analysis and packing that in together, and this is the solution. We can take your provider exchange solutions, your PSTN with Enterprise Plus. This is a great combination we're seeing for customers. And I just want to touch on contact centers. We launched this in February in the US. We recently launched it in the UK a few months ago, Australia this week. You'll see this launch globally with our bring your own carrier architecture that allows anybody to sell this globally. Japan in March as well. But this is truly an omni-channel contact center that's video optimized. We're going to play to our strengths, right? How many customers built out telehealth, telemedicine, investment banking that was focused around a Zoom meeting experience? We're seeing a lot of interest in those. And how can they add more to it? Can I schedule? Can I chat inside of there? What other features can I add? But also, the simplicity of moving between channel to channel. We made an acquisition. I'm going to show you this video in a second. Called Solvvy earlier last year, and that is now our Zoom virtual agent. You'll see this inside the video a little bit, but we're seeing a lot of that first customer resolution through plus service. Can I just answer those questions? And when I can't, I need to move that. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe I need to move that to video. Maybe I need to share a screen. And you'll see this in this quick minute video that's going to give an example. Where we're seeing a lot of success initially was around those IT help desks, integrating into ServiceNow and into Zendesk and others, and really driving this happiness for customers. So let me play this for you.
Running an efficient help desk is a balancing act. Zoom Contact Center is an omni-channel solution that empowers help desks and customer service centers to provide fast, efficient, and personalized support. Your employees can reach your help desk through a variety of touch points: web chat, text, voice, or video. Get to the right agent through advanced skills-based routing, optimizing your staff's productivity and solving issues faster the first time. Streamline the engagement with integration to your service management system, so agents can view the employee's journey and history of IT issues. Zoom Contact Center's one-of-a-kind virtual video room provides a path to self-service, surfacing answers to frequently asked questions, support articles, or videos before the agent joins the call. With video, it's easy to confirm the employee's identity and deliver a more personalized interaction.
Hi, Wendy. One more thing. Could you share your screen?
It's the same meeting experience, just like any other Zoom call.
You know what? Let me ask the team.
When contact center agents need help, They can quickly reach back office experts from the same easy-to-use Zoom platform. Bringing together the best employee experience and customer experience. Welcome to the Modern Help Desk with Zoom Contact Center.
So a lot there, right? Wouldn't it be nice like that? But a lot of things you saw there. Single application, single backend management application. All the capabilities you use inside the Zoom app between team chat, calling, video, directly inside of there. So driving a better agent experience, better supervisor experience. But also you saw the video engagement and sharing screens, which we know there's an area that can be improved out there in the market. And then from integrations. So we announced at Zoomtopia several integrations that have recently come to market. One was around CRMs and ITSMs that are out there. Also all the WFO, WFM, quality management integrations, and we'll be building plenty. So you'll see a lot of feature velocity coming out of Zoom Contact Center here in the next couple months, like it has been last year. So get ready, this will be a fun area. And we think, you know, we were going to show another video, but this Zoom virtual agent, I think for everybody, we talked about AI, we talked about automation, cost of agents, having agents do the right work versus remedial work. I mean, we've seen like that surveys, about 70% of us all want to self-service. Who wants to sit on call and wait for someone to answer or for it to call back? If I can resolve those, and we've seen from our solution a nearly 50% resolution through that virtual agent, which really drives down those costs and allows us to expand. But where we can't, how do we send all that information on that customer journey? All the past information, their order history, engagements that they've had directly to that agent, and then that agent, if need be, we know that engagement drives a lot more when it's face-to-face, and you can understand, like how many times you said, like, if I could just show this to you, you would understand what I mean. It's really what we're after. So I want to shift gears a little bit to what's maybe near and dear to a few of the operators that are here. Our phone provider exchange offer. We came to market with Zoom Phone Native, but we also launched our Bring Your Own Carrier at the same time. And that was really focused on what we would call our 1.0 solution, leveraging those on-premise SBCs, connect from anywhere, and allowed us to scale really quickly through those relationships. Then we introduced cloud pairing shortly after that. We've gone through a couple of evolutions, which is that cloud-to-cloud connection that we have with you, and then building that to the marketplace has been outstanding for customers. But we want to take that to the next level with provider exchange. I mean, for those that don't know, it's basically Operator Connect for Zoom, right? And what that is, you know, we've built out redundant connections between you and us. We've built out APIs. We've integrated that directly into our admin console, so customers know exactly what's going on in those trunks and those legs that are happening. And I know some of you are here, but we have 22 of those live right now. A couple of aggregator partners with, you know, New Wave and Scipio, who's here. We're seeing this as really an area for us to double down and for growth. And the big area here is how do we go to market together? And I'll talk about that after we come back from a conversation we're going to have with one of these, which is ULAP. ULAP is led by Dominic McDonald. Dom wanted to be here. We had some visa challenges. He's based out of Brunei.